Hi there, and thanks for joining our brand new Wheel and Anchor program exploring India and the incredible Ganges River that we're going to be heading next year in October, November of 2025. This is an exciting program that has been in the works for quite a while and has a number of different components to it. I'm really excited to share with you what that's all about. A couple of quick words, first of all, about Wheel and Anchor. We are a community of travelers from all across Canada. A few photos from some of our past trips, great memories shared by like-minded people from all across the country. This is really the unique, one of the many unique things about Wheel and Anchor is that we really pride ourselves on finding people finding us, coming together for some amazing experiences, not only while traveling, but also on events. As of the time of recording this webinar, we've got a number of social events starting up, and we're hoping to do many more. A great opportunity again to meet people who really identify themselves as travelers, whether you are a new traveler or whether you are a seasoned traveler, have been many parts of the world. Regardless, our mission at Wheel and Anchor is for you to become well-traveled and well-connected. And when we say well-traveled, the way that we design and curate our itineraries is really meant to have you come away with a really unique insight, an experience that you don't get with off-the-shelf type tours that you'll find sort of in any travel agency. We do something different, and in the course of doing that, we allow you to become connected to some amazing of our members. We've gathered quite a few thousand members over the last number of years since our inception, and we're destined to go from there. Yeah, great things in store. So, without further ado, just another quick word about who Wheel and Anchor is. We have a great team of seasoned professionals who help us put together this dream and this vision, and it's headed up by myself. My name is Gordon Drager. I am the founder of Wheel and Anchor. I'm the curator of all of the trips that we have on offer here. And as far as you are concerned, our members, the most important person is Paula Zarnik. She is our senior trip specialist, the person who will assist you with answering your questions, making sure you have all the information that you need to be able to make the decision to join us. Today, I'm going to be taking you on a little digital tour around India, specifically the Ganges River Basin, where we're going to be heading next fall. This is a very special trip, so let's dive right into it. First of all, with my classic geography tour, we're talking about the northeastern corner of the country here, with the starting point of the trip being Kolkata, otherwise known, or I should say formerly known as Calcutta. Many of you will recognize the name of that city here, which is at the bottom of the Hooghly River just before it enters into the Indian Ocean. We have a pre-trip, which takes us down to Sundarban National Park. I'll tell you about that in a minute. And then the main trip, a river cruise, 2 weeks, all the way up the Hooghly River until it meets up with the Ganges River here at Farakka, and then continuing upstream up the Ganges River to Patna. We're then going to go overland to such places as Nalanda, Bodhgaya, home of the Bodhi tree, and ending up back on the Ganges River in Varanasi, one of the oldest the oldest inhabited city in the world. And once you arrive, as I say, you'll get a little bit of a feel, a taste for the city. And then the following day, we're going to head right onto our ship, the Kalna Panda. Now, we've chartered the ship again, so this is exclusively for Wheel and Anchor members. Let me tell you a little bit about our ship. She is was built about 10 years ago, and Panda, some of you who are watching this webinar maybe have participated in our Mekong River cruise. We also work with this company. Panda was founded by a British businessman who really is committed to preserving sort of the history of the colonial aspects of Southeast Asia, and he started in Myanmar with a number of these ships and has grown to quite a fleet. Of course, Myanmar, you can't visit these days, given the civil war that's happening there for the past few years. And so the benefit to that sad story is that he has relocated a couple of the ships, like the Kalna, which is a replica of a ship that was built back at the beginning of the First World War. And it sunk at the end of the Second World War. And Mr. Strawn had witnessed the recovery of the ship and back in the late 90s, and he got the nameplate and built essentially a replica of it, brand new, back in 2014, with a very shallow draft that allows us to cruise these parts of the Ganges River. It's a very comfortable ship. There are 18 cabins on board on both lower and upper decks. The configuration of the cabins is all the same, very comfy. Means we'll have a maximum of 30 members. Again, just wheel and anchor members aboard. What I like about the Pandas ships is that they're very warm. They're quite spacious. You get to hear a glimpse into one of the cabins. They're all exactly the same. And they have a generous size private bathroom for every single one. They're very warm and cozy. And then, of course, when you wander out onto the decks, sit in the wicker chairs and sort of watch the world go by, it is kind of like you're part of the colonial era, although that may not resonate, in a positive way, considering, how colonialism was obviously rejected back in the latter part of the 20th century. But anyway, I'm not going to go into the history lesson on all that. That is going to be your ship. On the first day, we're going to do a little bit more exploration of Kolkata for those who are just joining us for the main program. And then we're going to begin our sail up the Hooghly River for the first number of days. And I'm going to cover off some of these stops. There's a lot of detail, a lot of different things we're going to see along the way. Obviously, the program itinerary goes into a bit more detail than I am. We're going to stop at Chandernagore, which is a lovely little town, again, with a colonial heritage to it. We're going to see some of the church, some of the remnants of that era. As we get further and further away from Kolkata, again, we're going deep into the heart of India, where otherwise, tourists don't generally visit unless they're coming on a river cruise like this. We'll head up to Kalna, which is a town also known as Ambika Kalna, which has incredible historical monuments like the Rajbari Palace. There are 108 Shiva temples in this town. India has such a wild juxtaposition of religions, obviously Hinduism being the predominant one, but many other sub-domains of that that we learn about as we visit these various towns. We're going to visit this the little village or the town of Kalna by rickshaw, which is always a lot of fun. We'll see all of the intricate sculptures along the way that sort of give an impression of life sort of back in the day, and we'll visit into one of these Shiva temples, which has 108 concentric rings to it, which just is a testament to the incredible architectural brilliance of the era that came from. We're going to head up the river further to Mayapur. This town is particularly significant because it is the headquarters of what's known as ISKCON, which is the International Society of Krishna Consciousness. You might know it as Hare Krishna. This is where it all comes from. And the followers of Hare Krishna, again, I'm not going to go into that. We've all sort of, heard the chants, the songs, Hare Hare Krishna. I'm not going to do it because I'm probably going to do a bad job. But this is where it's all based. We'll have a chance actually to learn a little bit about what Krishna consciousness is all about. It's actually quite fascinating. I know myself in the past, people sort of took a dim view on the whole thing, but it's actually a progression of a very interesting approach to not so much religion, but because they are open to all religions. Anyway, as I say, fascinating place. Mayapur is the headquarters of all that. We'll visit the bazaar as well, but it's really this ISKCON that I think is one of the highlights of our visit in Mayapur. In Matiari, one of the next villages as we head upstream up the river, this is a town famed for its brass craftsmanship. We're going to see how they create using very primitive methodology, the pots and jars and so on. If we have time, we're going to visit this battlefield at Plassey, which is really a turning point in Indian history. We're going to find out all about that at the end of the 18th century. Another interesting stop along the way. The landscape is going to change. We're going to go from the very lowlands as we go up higher and higher. And it's, we don't pass through a lot of mountainous area, but you can see a little bit of the background here. The hills start to rise along the Ganges. And again, these towns, these historical places set against this a rather incredible backdrop. The next stop along the way, Murshidabad, which has, this is a town resonating from the Mughal era. We're going to get a chance to go into the Hazarduari Palace, which was built back in the early part of the 19th century. There's also a very impressive mosque here, Katra, and the Katgola Palace, that are examples of Georgian architecture from the so-called White Mughal era, which demonstrates the fusion between England and India. Of course, England, Great Britain having dominated society here for such a long period of time. We continue up, making our way towards Farakka. Lovely countryside, rice fields, kind of what you expect you would see in India. We're going to go through the village of Baranagar, which has a totally idyllic, beautiful atmosphere, some terracotta temples. We're going to see some Jain temples. Jainism, again, another one of the offshoots of Hinduism. And then we'll finally arrive at the Farakka Barrage, which is an engineering marvel built about 100 years ago, which was erected to, this is basically where the Hooghly River comes into, or actually because the water's flowing downstream, comes out of the mighty Ganges. And so it's at Farakka that we will witness that. We'll have a chance to visit the barrage. And at this point, our ship will enter onto the Ganges River itself. We'll continue upstream to a much wider river at this point, visiting Raj Mahal, heading up into the hills, and seeing some very ancient archaeological sites from the Gupta and Pala periods. We then have a day at sea. It's not at sea, but rather on the river, as we make our way up the Ganges. Again, you can see some very lush landscape here. And of course, as we know, India has become the most populous country in the world, but there are some incredible landscapes practically devoid of people. And this is one of the many, many surprising things that you're going to witness. We'll stop in some villages, very small villages. You'll find how happy and excited the people are. The children come out and smile, and they want to. At first they're a little bit timid. It's a really moving experience, and again, just to have a day to relax as we sail along the river will be quite welcome at this point in the trip. We'll then head into Bhaglapur, a silk producing town. It's not a terribly exciting picture of it here. It looks like a shopping mall, but nevertheless, the town is renowned for silk. So if you are interested in buying anything, this is probably the place to wait for. And we'll continue later in the afternoon up to Sultanganj, which features a couple of amazing granite rocks. One has a mosque on top, and another has a temple on top, dating back to the 16th century. So kind of a cool spot to visit. We then head into Mungar. And this is the home of a Mughal fort, which was built during the reign of, or the era of the East India Company. As you may remember, that was one of the largest companies in the world back in the day. But again, Mungar has something very special, and this is the home of the Bihar School of Yoga. And so for those of you who may have done a little bit of yoga or are thinking about doing some yoga, this isn't about yoga, but what you find here is that the Bihar School of Yoga is famous for the Satyananda School of Yoga, which is a combination of various forms of Hatha yoga techniques. Asana, which is the various poses, pranayama, mudra, bandha. That'll be familiar terms for anybody who's done yoga before. So we'll get a bit of an insight into this very important place in the world of yoga. That's what we'll find at Mungar. We then continue further up the river still to a little town called Mokama, which is where Jim Corbett, a very famous wildlife environmentalist, had undertaken a number of conservation efforts, challenging in this part of India where, of course, the population has grown so much, and with agriculture and so on, it's taken so much of the landscape. There's a lot of farmland, a lot of agricultural production around here, and so we'll learn about that, how the conservation efforts conflict with the need and the desire to expand the agriculture in a growing country such as India. We then head to Bar, and so Bar is the cremation site of Urmanath, which is here we're going to get a little bit of an insight into Hindu funeral customs and rituals, and this will become a theme as we get to Bodhgaya as well as into Varanasi, and you see some incredible how can I call it, rituals, and it's colorful, it's dramatic, and it's all sort of inspired by Lord Shiva. Again, for those of you that follow Indian history and the Indian gods, it's really quite remarkable. We'll have a chance to visit Alaknath Temple here in Bar, and so now we get into the part of India where we really get a different sense of the culture that's here. Before we arrive in Patna, this is our last stop on the cruise. So, at this point, 14 nights will have elapsed. We arrive here, Patna, a sacred city in Sikh culture. It's where the 10th Sikh Guru, Guru Gobind Singh, was born. And again, I remember my first visit to India, and I had sort of preconceived notions about what Sikhism was all about. Completely shifted when I went to India again, and I think it's very important here that we this is an opportunity to get an insight to what that's all about here in Patna. This is one of the oldest inhabited cities in the world, next to Varanasi. Of course, the end of our trip, we're going to see some of the highlights of Patna, the Golgar, an incredible granary with panoramic views over the city. We're going to see some Mughal area gardens and Hazar Duari Palace. Some amazing sculptures. Patna is one of those towns that's not so well known, but absolutely should be on everyone's tour of India. So we then disembark our ship. We say goodbye to our crew, who will have looked after us so well over the past 2 weeks, and we spend a day transferring down to Bodhgaya. Bodhgaya, a very important place. This is first of all, actually, sorry, on the way to Bodhgaya, we're going to stop in at Nalanda, which is a Buddhist monastic center, so where the Buddhist monks go to learn and to become Buddhist monks. We will then make our way into Bodhgaya itself, which is where the famous man Siddhartha Gautama got enlightenment while sitting under the Bodhi tree. And this is the Bodhi tree here in Bodhgaya. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Again, even if you are not Buddhist, like most Canadians are not, but I find personally that Buddhism and the study of it and all the principles of it are so fascinating. And this is essentially where it all began. So this is, essentially a pilgrim site, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. For the Buddhist religion. From Bodhgaya, we'll then head into Varanasi, the final stop on our trip. Once again, if Kolkata, was an eye-opener, Varanasi will be even more so. We're going to take the train. So we'll have, by this point, undertaken a number of different modes of transportation in India. We're going to have gone by bus. We're going to have gone by a small ship in the delta of the Sundarbans, obviously our river boat up the Ganges River, and now we're going to take the train from Gaya to Varanasi, so you'll get a sense of what train travel. We're going to take a nice train as a train as we can get in that part of the world, but it's a fascinating way to experience the countryside. We'll arrive in the city, the oldest living city in the world. It has ghats, it has temples, it's the spiritual rituals that I'm going to share with you in a minute. It is an incredible city, and we're going to cap this trip off by staying at the Taj Ganges Varanasi. The Taj hotels, some of the finest hotels you'll find not only in India but anywhere in the world, and so it will be an apt sort of conclusion to our trip. while in Varanasi, we are going to take a boat cruise down the Ganges. Not that we haven't had enough of boat cruising, but to cruise on the Ganges in Varanasi, because the ship, our main riverboat, can't get that far, even though it has a shallow draft up the Ganges. That's why we have to disembark at Patna. But we're going to take a small boat, and we are going to get out very early in the morning and witness the pilgrims performing their rituals at the bathing ghats, which are all along. These are the scenes that make Varanasi so famous. We're going to also visit a couple of temples like Vishwanath and the Bharat Mata temple, and again get a real in-depth feeling for Hindu culture. In the evening, one of the highlights of the trip, undoubtedly, we are going to witness an arti ceremony at the so-called Dasasoamedha Ghat, and this is where priests perform a special choreographed ritual that combines light and incense and flowers and lamps, and it's all about honoring the river goddess Ganga, after which, of course, the Ganges River is named. It is an incredible spectacle to see. You can see, judging by the thousands of people that witness this each evening, an arti ceremony is something very special and will undoubtedly leave a strong memory in your mind. We'll spend some time visiting the other parts of Varanasi. Again, it is both beautiful and striking in the sense that here you'll also find people that live by our standards in very poor conditions, but it's at the same time people are generally happy and positive, and it's a relatively safe city to wander around. You will be mesmerized by Varanasi and all of these rituals and ceremonies and the meditations. There is so much going on in this city. It is like no other. It is not for the faint of heart, but it is just remarkable. We'll have an incredible farewell dinner this evening that will celebrate the various cuisines that we will have experienced and that this part of India are famous for. That in and of itself will be a memorable experience, and that will sort of gradually wind up our trip in India, as I say, all the way up the Hooghly and Ganges rivers. I forgot to mention about Varanasi, of course, the textile heritage that's here. By this point, if you haven't already picked up some silk along the way or some other crafts, this is a trip where you might need to bring an extra suitcase if you're somebody that likes to collect handmade souvenirs, because there's going to be a lot of things that you'll find all along the trip. So that's basically it from this point in Varanasi. After a little meditation by the Ganges, we'll be heading off. Our trip will come to a conclusion after 3 whole weeks between the river cruise and our overland portion between Patna and Varanasi. So keep that in mind as we look at details, because, of course, this is in our program itinerary. But I note here for this program again, which is October 23rd to November 12th, 2025. So this is basically 3 weeks in duration. It's 20 nights, 14 aboard the ship, and 6 on land. So the pricing here in Canadian dollars is really quite good. And even the single supplement is, as you'll note there, is modest as we could possibly manage in negotiating with our partners, the ship company. So you'll have a host through the whole way, 20 nights in the main trip, 3 meals a day on board the ship. Nobody ever goes hungry aboard a river cruise ship like with Panda. So all your gratuities are obviously all taken care of as well, and you'll have a host, as I mentioned, throughout the entire experience. So a lot of value to be found here. The only thing, of course, that is in addition is your airfare, which we are happy to facilitate into Kolkata and out of Varanasi, as well as cancellation insurance, which we highly recommend, particularly for traveling anywhere. So if you have any questions about this program, if you'd like to find out more, I know I was going to mention one more thing before I close off this webinar. Weather at this time of the year, this is arguably one of the best times of the year to go. Mid-October to mid-November, the monsoon season ends in September. So we're right into the high season. The temperatures start to drop down. It's still going to be warm, but when I say warm, typically in the high 20s, and as low as into the low 20s. So it's optimal time for traveling. You could get some rain here and there in this day and age. In this day and age, with all the climate change, but generally speaking, it's a pretty dry time of the year. And because it's after rainy season, the waters of the rivers will be high, so there won't be any risk of drought at this time of the year. It's a perfect time to go. You may have other questions. We do also have, in addition to our program itinerary, our additional information document that gives lots of other details about the trip. So if you're interested to find out more, get a copy of the program itinerary. Make sure you request a copy as well as of our additional information document. And please do join us for this incredible trip, because, as I say, it's limited to 30 guests. We've launched it as early as we possibly could, because we know that with trips like this, which are kind of once in a lifetime ones, they do tend to sell out fairly quickly. So please join us, and thanks for watching this webinar today. Lots more to come, and we'll see you very soon.